Well, joining me on this episode of MSU Today is Tawana Kupe. He's the Vice Chancellor of the University of Pretoria in South Africa, and he's visiting Michigan State University this week. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. This is my alma mater. I have an honorary doctorate from here. I'm the chair of the advisory board of the African Alliance Partnership, which we're going to talk about.
That's right. Just first of all, your overall impressions of this visit. This isn't your first time. You have an honorary degree from MSU, but just your impressions of our university.
The place is still standing, which is good. But yeah, there are new things. It's always wonderful to be at MSU. One of the top leading institutions in the world that makes a difference, both locally in the United States, but also globally. It's been 60 years on the African continent, hence the Alliance. The Alliance is a little younger, but Michigan's involvement on the African continent is nearly 7 decades now.
Yes, I know David Wiley and people like that in our African Studies Center is one of the many jewels here at MSU.
Yeah.
But we'll start, sir, what is the Alliance for African Partnerships and what is MSU's role in supporting it?
No, well, in essence, the Alliance for African Partnership is as the names imply, it's an alliance of academic institutions dedicating to using knowledge to transform lives both around the world, in Africa particularly, but also making a global contribution. What it really does is to pool knowledge and expertise and to develop further expertise in our capacity building programs. I think we'll talk about this later for young females and others, by the way, but also producing that kind of knowledge that is not necessarily just knowledge. Producing knowledge is a good thing in its own right. Democratic and stable societies produce knowledge, but also you can take it a step further. Produce knowledge directed at specific challenges, whether it's food security, the burden of disease, climate change, energy. The multiple crises that the world actually faces can all be solved by knowledge. But the best way to do it is to be partners and to work together. So the Alliance for African Partnerships includes MSU as the anchor and driver, if you like, and then also 10 other African institutions, including the mighty University of Pretoria.
So among the programs, and there are a couple that focus on closing the gender gap, tell us about the Professional Fellows Program and the African Futures Research Leadership Program.
Yeah, the African Futures Leadership Program, so I now jump out first with this because it's important. It addresses a number of things that we're not proud of in academia. The gender gap, as you said, and to use a less fancy word, is simply the fact that women don't have the same chances and enabling environments as men do in academia. Here in the United States, as well as in Africa, where it's even more exacerbated, only 30% of women, I think, would have that kind of tenure track that they actually reach professor and my kind of position. So what it does is to choose women from the African continent, to choose women from the African continent who have a mentor at their institution and a mentor at MSU. They come and spend a year here at MSU and learn to build their scholarly and academic skills, but also learn to publish for impact. Translating research insights into impact, and also learn to write research grants. The business of being in academia requires a multiplicity of interrelated skills. Can you write a project proposal that is competitive and can get a grant? Can you publish in top scholarly journals, books? Can you produce policy briefs and related genres of material? And can you rise through the academy from being, tenure track at assistant professor level all the way to becoming president of the university or a provost of a university? So we're really proud of that program, which is now recruiting for its 4th cohort, has done 3 cohorts, and started way back in 2019, I think, with the 8. With 8, and also there is coming a video series from the first cohort, I think, in other cohorts to say what's been the impact of the program, because the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Impact is not only us impacting it, is people want to see that the African Futures Leadership Program does indeed produce future leaders who are top academics, top academic administrators, people who impact lives.
Well, you led me into my next question. I was going to ask you, what has the impact been so far of the partnership?
No, I mean, just simply because, as I said, there are only 30% women in this kind of status where they they really have a tenure track position to wonderful careers that impact lives. It's producing 3 cohorts already since 2019. It's a huge contribution in itself. And remember that the AAP is not the only one also doing this. At the University of Pretoria, we also run similar kinds of programs funded by Carnegie, Mellon, and others. So what AAP is putting into a pool of a movement, if you like, for dealing with what we call early career researchers, but particularly in this instance, women. So we are contributing to closing the gender gap.
Where would you like to see the Alliance focus its efforts in the future as it evolves, and are there some emerging trends that need to be addressed?
No, really translating research impacts, research insights into greater societal impact is the next frontier. In other words, being very intentional, strategic about the knowledge that we produce, the critical, and we produce lots of knowledge. But as you know, they are hidden in things that most of the public and policymakers don't read. They're hidden in top journals and other very good journals, in books and in other academic style communications that the rest of the public don't know and policymakers don't know. Often we forget that policymakers don't need to be as educated as they are. A guy with a high school leaving certificate can become a senator in the United States and can become a senator and a president in my country. We've had a president who didn't even finish high school. And so what we do need to develop as academics is that kind of material that, speaks to the concerns that people have about their lives. And they're able to use knowledge to address that. So policy briefs, if you like, podcasts like yours, working with guys like, we need to work more with guys like yourself because you reach an audience that we would not necessarily reach as academics. So that the knowledge that we have can really reverse 2 of the big existential crises we have in the world. It's a crisis of our humanity and a crisis of the planet. On the crisis of the humanity, all across the world, not just the United States, you see increasing violence, including intrapersonal violence. School shootings in the United States and other things like that. Not only in the United States, the violent crime in South Africa, directed at persons, by persons, if you like. Then bigger crimes, theft of billions of US dollars and millions of rands and all of that, and also just corruption and lack of accountability are things that affect all of our humanity. Then the planetary crisis with climate change, where basically nature is hitting back at our irresponsibility in how we've lived on this planet. All of that can be resolved by knowledge, and all of that can be resolved by alliances and partnerships of knowledge institutions, bilaterally, but more preferably multilateral. So we would also like to see how we can expand the AAP, have more US universities perhaps, that's a big question we're discussing, have even more African institutions, expand to the rest of the world, because we need that global movement of universities to reverse the existential crisis.
Well said, sir. So summarize what you'd like us to know about the partnership.
Now, the partnership is godsend. We at the University of Pretoria participate in it simply because of this strategic nature, and that MSU was if you like, wisdom. It was wisdom to create this kind of partnership, because look how many people are coming through the fellowships, through the African Futures Leaders Program and others. We have been here 2-3 days now, and lots of connections and touch points have been made, and people are going to be working together. So it's that wave I've been talking about. So the partnership must live long and transform the world.
Well, that's Tawana Kupe. He's the Vice Chancellor of the University of Pretoria in South Africa. We've been talking about the Alliance for African Partnerships, and there's more online. You could just Google that, of course, or go to aap.isp.msu.edu. And sir, I just had one more question for you. I saw in your background you've got an extensive interest, both personally and scholarly, in the media. Just wonder, and I know we could have a whole conference on this probably, but how would you compare and contrast the media maybe in South Africa and America, and just sort of where is this whole media world going, as how we consume the content just seems to be changing all the time? Right?
Facing at least 3 challenges in the time we have is, first is the challenge of digital disruption, a movement away from the traditional platforms, over the air, print, and over the air in terms of radio and TV and print in terms of print media, newspapers and magazines. The whole world is disrupted. We knew a vitally new model that speaks to all audiences, including particularly young people. Where I come from in South Africa and in Africa, it's a predominantly very young population and growing younger by tens. 70% of the population in some countries is just young people below the age of 35 or even 25. So we need you can't lose your audiences, as you know. You have to keep up with your audiences. But it's also a disruption of the funding and financing model, which has implications for media freedom or press freedom. Press freedom is under threat all over the world from interesting multiple sources, the disrupted models, and also changing commercial models and commercial pressures, and some governments as well playing fast and loose with being accessible to the media, and then also from this phenomenon of disinformation, misinformation. Those are nice words we use. We call it fake news and all of that. But actually we're talking about lies, propaganda, and lack of facts. and I think we should call it by what it is. So all of those threats, I think, are true in the United States, true in South Africa and the rest of the world, in varying degrees, of course. But as you know, there is no society that is ever developed without a free media and a free press, and also circulation of accurate information that in a sense unites people in having a common purpose to drive our common humanity, if you like. So very dark days, and also there are also old-fashioned threats like journalists being killed, arrested, whistleblowers being, even here in the United States, whistleblowers being arrested, and people being forced to reveal their sources. So that can't really be good for democracy and good for a sustainable world.
Well, a great summary there, sir. Well, thank you again for coming in today and for joining us at Michigan State University again.
Thank you.
That's Tawana Kupe, the Vice Chancellor of the University of Pretoria in South Africa. And I'm Russ White. This is MSU